The bottom,
near
maybe?
the share screen.
Found it.
At the bottom, near the share screen chat,
recording now.
share screen
It's
and
recording.
record.
Yeah, we're live. We're live.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'd like to talk about the initiative. This is a very unique initiative, I must say, and it's called Teacher Leadership in Kazakhstan. And we would like to report about its aim, the process, and of course, the outcome of the year one. And just a second. And I will be, the research side of the work will be reported by myself, my colleague, Dr. Courtney, and then Alexandra Nam is our colleague research assistant, but she's not here today, but she was part of the research team. We shall talk about the rationale of the project, then the program implementation, the program participants, evaluation of the program, and then we'll talk about the challenges and opportunities and plans for year two, and then finalize with our final, thoughts. As I said earlier, this is a sort of a very unique project in the sense that it involves several local and international organizations. The project is funded by Soros Foundation Kazakhstan, and the project is implemented by Community Education Foundation School for All, located in Kazakhstan. And then our colleagues internationally, Hatscam Network UK, and Dr. David Frost is representing the network today. And then NUGC is involved in the project implementation as well as the evaluation process. And we are also, working closely with the departments of education and the schools. So this is a 3-year initiative that involves around 16 school principals at the moment, 32 facilitators and 150 teachers from 4 different parts of the Kazakhstan. The aims of the projects are as follows. The first one is establishing the practice of non-positional teacher leadership in mainstream schools in Kazakhstan. So we are working solely with the mainstream schools, not the selective ones. Building capacity for continued support for non-positional teacher leadership, contributing to the development of leadership capacity in schools in Kazakhstan, as well as advocating for non-positional teacher leadership as a catalyst of extended professionality and educational improvement. I would like to invite my colleagues, the key people in implementing this project. Mrs. Saule Kalikova, you've already read her bio, I'm sure. She's a policy advisor at the Soros Foundation Kazakhstan. And then I will ask my colleague Rubadan Zakayeva, if she has already joined, I'm sure, to talk briefly about the Community Education Foundation School for All, as well as about our project. And then I will invite Dr. David Frost, the member of the Board of Trustees of the Hatscam Network and the fellow of Wolfson College, Cambridge University, UK. So this is it at the moment. So I think, Saule Amanzolovna, прошу вас.
Ну, во-первых, Гульмира и вся команда Назарбаев университета Высшей школы образования, я бы хотела поблагодарить вас за то, что получила приглашение, я с удовольствием приняла это приглашение, для того, чтобы рассказать о 2 вещах, как Гульмира меня просила. Во-первых, почему мы поддержали эту программу Teacher Leadership in Kazakhstan, почему фонд Сорос заинтересовался этой программой и разработал стратегию ее поддержки в течение 3 лет. И второе, чем мы сейчас занимаемся. Но я понимаю, что времени у меня не очень много, поэтому, может быть, я коротко начну с того, чем мы сейчас занимаемся, и расскажу, почему мы поддержали эту программу. Но вы, может быть, слышали или знаете, что в этом году наш фонд для нас юбилейный. Мы работаем в Казахстане уже 25 лет. Общий бюджет, который мы потратили на все программы в Казахстане за эти 25 лет, это около $100 миллионов. Из них около 35 миллионов, то есть почти 1/3, это бюджет, который пошел на поддержку образовательных программ. Это были очень разные программы, я сейчас не буду на них останавливаться, но было несколько таких ключевых направлений, которые прямо коррелируют с нашей values, с нашими ценностями, с нашей аджендой, с нашей повесткой. Это развитие критического мышления. У нас было несколько очень интересных проектов, возможно, вы о них знали и знаете, дебаты, степ-бай-степ, развитие критического мышления. Это, конечно, большой блок поддержка равенства и справедливости. И здесь у нас было очень много проектов в области инклюзивного образования. Более того, я должна сказать, что мы продвигали это направление на протяжении последних 5 лет. в тесном сотрудничестве с Министерством образования. И мы понимаем, что эта повестка не исчерпана, и там, где будет возможно, мы будем в ней участвовать. То есть продвижение политики инклюзивного образования. Одним из важных направлений всегда, начиная вот с конца 90-х годов, это у нас была поддержка школ и профессиональное развитие учителей. Я тоже не буду говорить о том, какие это были разные программы, но вот этот проект Teacher Leadership in Kazakhstan, вот этого большого нашего такого ключевого направления, поддержка профессионального развития учителей. Мы много сделали для академических обменов. У нас, вы знаете, прежде чем появилась в Казахстане программа «Булашак» в 2004 году, у нас была большая стипендиальная программа, которая начала работать с 1995 года. Предоставляла молодым людям возможность учиться в лучших университетах американских и в Европе. Ну, вот это как бы наш такой бэкграунд. Теперь, что касается того, что с 2018, 18, 19, 20 год, наша трехлетняя стратегия, она включает в себя 3 направления. Я думаю, что они все 3 для вас интересны. Одно из них – это профессиональное развитие учителей, где мы взяли и сконцентрировались, сфокусировались вот на этом проекте по непозиционному лидерству учителей. И я не буду подробно рассказывать, как она развивалась, сколько сеть, я думаю, Гульмира об этом скажет, но я хочу сказать, почему фонд Сорос поддержал эту программу. Я считаю, что эта программа имеет исключительно важное значение для изменения культуры школы изнутри. То есть вы понимаете, что в нашей системе, когда реформы идут так перманентно, когда реформы, у нас все-таки такая централизованная система спускания реформ сверху, очень важно создавать такую, так сказать, школьную культуру, которая бы не просто принимала эти реформы как к исполнению. То есть школы не просто как, знаете, государственное учреждение, которое, так сказать, ну, под козырек говорит: окей, мы это сделаем, вам надо, мы вам сделаем. А чтобы внутри школы создавался такой потенциал для профессионального развития самой администрации, учителей, создавать вот эту культуру, то, что называется continuum professional development. Конечно, в этом направлении вы все специалисты, я думаю, что вы пишете магистерские, докторские диссертации, читаете, возможно, сами курсы на эти темы и о школьном лидерстве, и о лидерстве учителей, и вы понимаете, что это направление в мире очень хорошо разработано, есть туча разных определений, что есть лидерство. Но когда мы выбирали, и когда я встретилась с Дэвидом где-то в 2011 году и увидела его книжку «Трансформация образования через лидерство учителей», я поняла, что эта программа имеет такую одну очень важную особенность. Она очень прагматична, в хорошем смысле слова, она очень инструментальна. То есть, с одной стороны, это концепция, Non-positional teaching leadership concept, с другой стороны, инструменты, tools. И вот это, так сказать, вот это вот совпадение, мне показалось, что это так удачно, так хорошо сделано, и я подумала, что было бы хорошо привести ее в Казахстан. И вот на протяжении, так сказать, многих лет мы вынашивали эту идею из 17-го, с 18-го, и было такое еще как бы счастливое совпадение, что Гульмира писала докторскую работу у Дэвида. То есть она как бы оказалась той казахстанкой, тем ее непосредственным учеником Дэвида, ну, которая как бы из первых рук получила эту концепцию, получила это понимание, как развивать эту программу. Мне показалось, что это очень хорошее стечение обстоятельств. И мы в 2018 году открыли эту программу. Она у нас идет как разработана в плане как трехлетняя программа. Сейчас она 2-й год ее реализации. И я думаю, что она идет довольно успешно и хорошо. И надеюсь, что одним из как бы ключевым стратегическим результатом этой программы будет как раз то, что она внесет свой существенный вклад в изменение культуры работы школы, в создание моделей профессионального развития учителей на их рабочем месте. Я не буду вдаваться, вы аудитория достаточно, так сказать, продвинутая и просвещенная в этом плане, вы понимаете, как это важно для Казахстана. Вот. Второе направление, которое вас может заинтересовать, и Гульмира меня предупредила, что могут быть вопросы, это исследования. Мы поддерживаем исследования, действительно, но я должна сказать, что мы поддерживаем, мы не открываем большие конкурсы, исследование является частью наших проектов. То есть исследования, например, когда мы хотели делать эту программу по учителям, мы провели исследование, почему молодые люди выбирают профессию учителя и что мотивирует их оставаться в ней. То есть нам нужны evidence, нам нужны были данные по учителям для того, чтобы обосновывать, почему мы эту программу привезли в Казахстан. Сейчас делается у нас исследование, результаты Казахстана в международных исследованиях, PISA, TIMSS, PIRLS и так далее. Для чего? Для того, чтобы как бы застолбить, уже об этом говорят, конечно, на политическом уровне, но получить такие мощные, интересные данные по поводу неравенства в Казахстане, неравенства в учебных достижениях и так далее. И сейчас мы будем проводить исследования по голоса учителей. Это исследование у нас еще как бы не объявлено, мы еще о нем думаем, но тоже оно нам нужно для того, потому что в новом стратегическом цикле, который у нас будет с 2021 по 2024 год, мы хотим сфокусироваться наряду вот с теми проектами, которые сейчас у нас идут, мы хотим сфокусироваться на проблеме представленности голосов учителей в образовательной реформе. Мы знаем, что учителя, как бы, голос снизу не слышен. Мы хотим исследовать и посмотреть, какова ситуация в Казахстане, насколько они институционально представлены, что и так далее. Но это будет такой, как бы, ситуационный анализ. То есть я хочу вам дать такое сообщение, что да, мы проводим исследования, но исследования у нас такие, грубо говоря, они у нас идут как подсобные, как для того, чтобы, как часть нашей проектной деятельности. Вот. Еще одно интересное направление, которое может быть вам тоже интересно, это мы очень много, достаточно серьезно, с хорошими международными экспертами, партнерами вкладываемся в развитие потенциала молодых исследователей. У нас уже 2 года идет программа по развитию навыков работы с большими данными в образовании. Кажется, там есть и ребята, и девчата из Назарбаев университета, которые в этих группах учатся. Вот. И 7-й год у нас есть программа Public Policy Initiatives. Там вот молодые исследователи учатся писать, знаешь, ну такое, как написать действенный аналитический документ, как делать адвокацию рекомендаций, таких policy recommendations. Ну, в общем, это очень интересно, и цель этих инициатив связана с тем, что мы хотим обогатить поле, экспертное поле Казахстана молодыми именами, молодыми экспертами. Вот это очень коротко, чтобы не занимать время. И я хотела сказать, что наш принцип работы таков, что мы работаем с местными неправительственными организациями. У нас есть такие наши давние друзья, такие стратегические партнеры, одной из которых является, вот Гульбадан здесь представляет, общественное объединение «Школа для всех», которые вот в данном случае, они администрируют и включаются и в содержательный, и в организационный компонент вот программы лидерства учителей в Казахстане. Мы с этой организацией делали много проектов разных, в том числе очень много в области инклюзивного образования. Ну, возможно, Гульбадан об этом сама скажет.
Спасибо большое вам, Сауле Аманжоловна. Тогда я быстренько резюмирую вашу речь на английском. I would like just to summarize what Saule has already told us. She represents Source Foundation Kazakhstan, as I've already told, and she's been part of that foundation since 1992. Since 1992, this organization has funded around $100 million US dollars into the educational and social development of Kazakhstan. And the key areas were developing critical thinking, step-by-step program, and then social justice and equity. And then there are at the moment 3 key areas for the Soros Foundation, which is, first one is this program, Teacher Leadership Development in Kazakhstan. The second one is about, researching how to enhance teachers' voices in education reform in Kazakhstan. And the third area is big data analysis. And they are running at the moment a school for the young researchers to learn, more about big data analysis. The key aim of this project, as Saule has noted, which is teacher leadership in Kazakhstan, is about facilitating bottom-up educational reform in Kazakhstan, as well as creating professional learning culture in schools, and enhancing school leadership teams, leadership skills, and so on and so forth. And in 2017, Saule says that she first visited the UK, Cambridge, and then she observed how the program, the teacher-led development work program, runs very well in the UK schools, and how organized and pragmatic and helpful are the tools for teachers to engage with. Therefore, they decided to introduce this program, and the piloting took place in several schools in Kokshetau. Prior to that, I did piloting in schools in Taras, and then the program started. The Teacher Leadership Initiative, Teacher Leadership in Kazakhstan initiative started since 2019. So I think this is very, very brief, summary of the whole speech. Thank you. And I would like to invite another representative, my colleague, Gulbadan Zakayeva. At the moment she is with us. She is the representative of Community Education Foundation School for All. Gulbadan.
Добрый вечер, уважаемые коллеги. Меня зовут Гульбадан Закаева. Я являюсь директором общественного образовательного фонда «Школа для всех». Хочу поблагодарить Гульмиру за то, что пригласила на эту встречу. Гульмира попросила рассказать о проектах, которые осуществляются нашим фондом. Я хочу вкратце рассказать о тех проектах, которые осуществляются нашим фондом за последние 2 года. У нас 3 проекта в настоящее время, в котором мы работаем. И я считаю, что самым таким значимым, долгосрочным из них является проект по развитию непозиционного лидерства учителей в Казахстане. Данный проект осуществляется за счет гранта фонда «Сорос Казахстан», как все вы уже слышали. И целью проекта является развитие культуры непрерывного профессионального развития и лидерства учителей на базе общеобразовательных школ Республики Казахстан. Также повышение их роли как профессионалов в процессе модернизации системы образования. Проект осуществляется в партнерстве с Назарбаев университетом, конкретно с Высшей школой образования Назарбаев университета, и в партнерстве с профессиональным сообществом учителей Великобритании Хартскем. Задачей команды Хартскем является полное методическое обеспечение программы. То есть проведение вводной программы для фасилитаторов, директоров школ, пилотных школ, которые вовлечены в проект, а также подготовка руководств для участников программы, которые включают все необходимые инструменты, материалы, все то, что необходимо для работы по программе. Также команда Hertzcam поддерживает процесс оценки программы и сертификации педагогов. Высшая школа образования Назарбаев университета, как ведущее научно-исследовательское учреждение, взяла на себя консультационную и исследовательскую часть проекта. Данная работа осуществляется Гульмирой Qanay, которая расскажет о результатах данного исследования сама. Я хочу рассказать о том, что было сделано на первом этапе проекта согласно поставленным задачам. Проект на первом этапе нами были вовлечены 180 учителей, 32 фасилитатора и 16 директоров из 4 регионов Казахстана. 16 школ были отобраны для участия в проекте. Школы были из города Нур-Султан, Алматы, Тарас и Кокшетау. И для участников проекта была проведена конференция командой Hertzcam, на базе Назарбаев университета, куда были приглашены участники проекта, фасилитаторы и директора школ. Также вот в течение этого учебного года были организованы и проведены групповые встречи, межшкольные сессии, финальные конференции, которые дали возможность участникам проекта обсуждать свои проекты, уточнять свои ценности, делиться опытом, знаниями и, естественно, пропагандировать и распространять идею лидерства среди своих коллег. Следующим этапом будет это расширение проекта, но в условиях пандемии и дистанционного образования проект будет направлен не на увеличение количества школ, а на увеличение количества педагогов, вовлеченных в проект. То есть будет углубление программы внутри школы. Одним из важных задач данного этапа является продвижение концепции лидерства учителей и повышение осведомленности как общества о ходе реализации проекта, так и учителей и руководителей школ. И это будет осуществляться через создание веб-сайта проекта, через составление и издание книги о реализации проекта в Казахстане, через распространение информации в социальных сетях и так далее. То есть мы будем работать в этом учебном году вот в этом направлении. В долгосрочной перспективе на базе вот школ участников проекта будут созданы, мы считаем, что будут созданы альтернативные модели непрерывного профессионального развития учителей и школы, будут созданы сообщества педагогов, практиков, приверженных идее лидерства учителей, и школы, которые были вовлечены в проект, выступят инновационными площадками по развитию учителей и формированию потенциала для совершенствования собственной институциональной культуры. И мы считаем, что таким образом проект согласовывается с государственной программой развития образования и науки Республики Казахстан на 2020-2025 годы, где указывается, что школы, получившие высокую оценку по итогам экспертного обзора качества среднего образования, им будет предоставлена возможность стать обучающей школой и заниматься распространением своего опыта в другие школы, что соответствует философии программы непозиционного лидерства учителей. И следующим проектом, над которым работал наш фонд, это проект NEPS, сеть центров образовательной политики. Наш фонд работал с марта по апрель месяц этого года над этим проектом и участвовал. Задачей, которая стояла перед нашим фондом, это был сбор и подготовка национальных данных об инклюзии в сфере образования Казахстана. Данная информация была использована в качестве основы для работы по анализу регионального отчета GEM. В рамках этого проекта мы сотрудничали не только NEPS, но и сотрудничали с разными неправительственными организациями Казахстана и Национальной академией образования, а также Национальным центром коррекционной педагогики. Следующим небольшим проектом, но я думаю, что это очень актуальная тема, следующим проектом является тоже проект, который финансируется NEPS. Мы планируем участвовать в этом проекте с ноября этого года. Проект направлен на исследование деятельности общеобразовательных школ и организации технического и профессионального образования республики в период пандемии. Мы планируем провести исследование деятельности общеобразовательных школ и организаций технического и профессионального образования Казахстана в период пандемии путем проведения онлайн-опроса. Планируем, что в проект будут вовлечены 350 учителей и педагогов из 140 школ и колледжей из разных регионов Казахстана, которые поделятся своим опытом дистанционного обучения, также организации и адаптацию учебного процесса в условиях мирового кризиса, вызванного пандемией. И мы считаем, что инициатива будет способствовать обмену опытом и информацией между странами-участниками, а также принятию решения на основе полученных результатов исследования для повышения качества реакции школ на возможное повторение ситуации в условиях чрезвычайного положения. По результатам проекта будут разработаны научно обоснованные рекомендации и представлены МОН-РК, и будут проведены презентации как для Министерства образования Республики Казахстан, так и для заинтересованных организаций. Ну вот вкратце те проекты, над которыми мы работали и продолжаем работать. Спасибо вам за внимание.
Let me just briefly summarize what Gulbadan has said. At the moment, Community Education Foundation School for All is running 3 different projects. The key one, the biggest one, is Teacher Leadership in Kazakhstan initiative, and Gulbadan highlighted the roles of each organization. Hartscom Network as the key, partner, which is responsible for the methodology of the program. NUGC as the one who is responsible for the program consultation, implementation, and evaluation. And the key aims of the TLK project, which is about developing CPD culture in schools in Kazakhstan, enhancing teachers' roles, in the education reform. And she also highlighted that there are 180 teachers involved in the project, 16 schools, and 32 facilitators, which are located in Nur-Sultan, Almaty, Taraz, and Kokshetau. And that induction conference took place back in August 2019, and then and the key areas of development of the program for 2021. And then there are 2 more projects that the School for All is running at the moment, which is one is about network of educational policy centers, and the key area of that research is about analyzing data related to inclusive education in Kazakhstan. And the 3rd project is about researching teaching and learning during the pandemic in schools in Kazakhstan and vocational institutions. So yeah, that's a very, very brief summary of Gulbadan's speech. Okay, just a minute. Now let me share the screen once again so that we could carry on with our presentation. Just a second. Yep. Okay, so the rationale of the research part of the project, just briefly, I need to explain why this project was very important and interesting to us as researchers. Educational change depends on teachers' practices, and that became sort of an axiom, I guess, for many, and that's been the key claim, made by different kinds of scholars and researchers for the last more than 20 years. And the large-scale top-down educational reforms that undermine teachers' roles, usually tend to, result in superficial outcomes. And educational reform in Kazakhstan, particularly at the moment, again, based on the empirical studies and international reports, as well as the enhancing school autonomy, requires building leadership capacity in schools in Kazakhstan. Just a moment. I think I should have done something very important, and I'm very sorry. Before talking about all of those details, I think it'll be very helpful first to listen to Dr. David Frost, and then I shall continue talking about all of those research part of the work. I'm very sorry, David. I should have, given careful consideration to time. I'm sorry. David, please.
Okay. Thank you, Gulmira. You mustn't worry. I'm very easygoing. Can I share my screen?
Yes, absolutely. I think you should be able to. Do you have that button, share screen button?
Yeah, okay. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Good. So can I just say that I'm feeling immense joy and sadness today, because it's 10 years since I started coming to Kazakhstan, 10 years of connection to this wonderful country. And 10 years ago, I first visited Nazarbayev University. And the following day, I went to Almaty and I met Saule Kalikova. And that 10 years has been a wonderful pursuit of ideas and a dialogue which enables us to be here speaking together today. So let me just say something about non-positional teacher leadership and what it is not, because very often people run away with a misinterpretation. People make assumptions. So first of all, I want to make it clear, it is not a particular kind of leadership. It is simply who exercises leadership. Leadership is leadership is leadership. We can talk about that some other time, but the point is who can do it. And I'm suggesting that anyone can do it with the right kind of support. And it's not a form of continuing professional development, which often people think it is. It is simply an alternative professional development opportunity. Of course, it involves professional learning, but it is not conceived as a CPD program because it's about leadership, it's about teacher leadership. Some people also assume it's about research or inquiry to be carried out by teachers. It's not that either. Again, the important thing is enabling teachers to exercise leadership. So we use the term non-positional teacher leadership simply to refer to a situation in which anyone working in a school can develop their mode of professionality, the way they see themselves as a teacher, and include within that the exercise of leadership. So professionality for me is an important concept. It isn't the same as professionalism, it's quite distinct, and I haven't got time to go into that sort of argument. But just to give you the flavor of what I mean by an extended professionality, it's the kind of teacher who sees themselves as part of a learning community, not just as an individual. Somebody who sees themselves as having agency, of being involved and interested in leading change and making a difference. Somebody who is guided by their own educational principles and their sense of moral purpose, rather than simply following whatever the latest instructions are. It's someone who sees themselves as improving their practice through discovering how to improve their practice, through evaluating and reviewing practice, and someone who creates professional knowledge through the leadership of development work and through the networking that follows that. So finally, it's the kind of teacher who see themselves as exercising leadership, influencing their colleagues within school. That's what I have in mind when I think about extended professionality. Now, if professionality is the key, what kind of processes are involved in bringing about that extended professionality? Now, at the center of my screen at the top there is the concept of empowerment. We have to think about the process of being empowered, of achieving empowerment. And to my right of it, the cultivation of agency. It isn't something we can take for granted. It is a natural human facility, but we need to think about how to cultivate agency. And on the left-hand side of the screen that I'm looking at, a key part of that is foregrounding teachers' identity, their biographies, their narratives, listening to, enabling them to tell that story. Because on the right side, it's about enabling teachers to express their voice, so often drowned out in the education system. And on the left-hand side, the idea that teachers can mutually inspire each other. So the process of inspiring each other is really vital to building that sense of extended professionality. And on the left also, participation in decision-making. It's really important to involve teachers in decision-making, not necessarily just to get the decisions right, which that is true, of course, but because it's important for them to be part of that learning community and to regard themselves as having that extended professionality. And finally, at the bottom right, I think it's important, and my colleagues in HeartsCam think it's important, that we enable teachers to engage in critical scholarship so that they can develop the way they think, their ability to apply the literature and the conceptual frameworks they find in the literature to their own practice. Now, if we could achieve all that, we end up with extended professionality, which has many benefits, which I indicate briefly at the bottom of the screen. And I'll say a bit more about the benefits in a sec. So the kind of activities which enable those kinds of processes to come about, enable empowerment, enabling engagement with scholarship, enabling all that. Reflection and dialogue. We have to enable teachers to engage in reflection and dialogue. We have to enable them to engage in advocacy. In other words, to be able to get up and promote key ideas. Ideas about practice, of course. What is a good practice? What is a workable practice? But also to advocate for teacher leadership itself, to advocate for being a teacher who knows what they're doing. We need to enable them to design and plan their own projects, to lead those projects, and to engage in the networking through which the knowledge building takes place. Networking is not just about disseminating and sharing. It's very complex, actually. It's about building knowledge together, shaping it through dialogue. It's also about developing a sense of common cause and building that sense of strengthened moral purpose. So those kinds of activities are what we get when we focus on the processes in the previous slide. And of course, the Teacher Leadership Initiative in Kazakhstan uses the methodology we call teacher-led development work methodology to enable those activities to take place. That's the key to it. That's what we're trying to achieve, to enable those things, the bullet points on the left, to take place. And that's what the support of the project is designed to do. So the outcomes then, just a little bit more about that. If we achieve extended professionality, imagine a whole education system in which all teachers see themselves as extended professionals. Of course, on the left, we get practice development. Actually, what happens in classrooms gets better, more innovative, and more effective. And on the right, we get teacher self-efficacy. In other words, teachers who are confident about who they are, confident about their skills, very conscious and aware of what it is to be a good teacher, and they're prepared to explain themselves to other people. That's self-efficacy. And on the left, we get school effectiveness. Every school principal wants to be able to say that the standard of the quality of education in their schools is getting higher and higher and higher. And if you improve practice, and if you enable teachers to be confident and clear about who they are, you get more effective schools. And next to that, of course, if you get effective schools, you can then bring about system reform. You can't bring about system reform without paying attention to what's going on in schools and with teachers. And of course, on the other side, under the self-efficacy one, you have professional learning. I don't use the word professional development because it's been hijacked by those people who want to simply promote programs that train people. I'm more interested in the learning that takes place when teachers engage in the kind of activities I've just talked about. So when teachers actively identify problems, actively design projects, and pursue those projects through their own agency, they learn remarkably quickly, and they learn in a very deep way, a profound way. And that's what we're after. So, of course, when that happens, we've also got a strengthened organizational capacity within the school and within the system. Good head teachers, good school principals know that they need, as an organization, to have the capacity to deal with reform, to deal with change. Look at the change we're all having to deal with now, with this pandemic, or as we like to call it, the Trump virus. It really is such a challenge to everybody, and this is where you need the organizational capacity. So if you want to read more about us, of course, in HeartsCam, you can get access to these publications. And such thanks to Soros, our Red Book, which is one of our books in 2014, is available in Russian. And we obviously hope that other publications will be available in Russian and even Kazakh. Wouldn't that be wonderful in the future? There are many publications in English, many things that you can pursue if you are studying this kind of area. And I'm sure you can look this up later on. I won't go through it. I'd like to finish by concentrating on, so in the first slide, I said, non-positional teacher leadership is not research, but it is, or presents us with, an interesting research problem. And this is a research seminar, and we have an academically minded audience. So I want to focus on what I think some of the opportunities are for research linked to this kind of work. First of all, the policy environment. We have already learned a great deal about the policy environment that enables or makes it difficult to develop teacher leadership. That's really well worth looking at. If I was a researcher in Kazakhstan, I would think, now that is something worth focusing on. Teacher professionality, well, it's an interesting concept. It involves all sorts of interesting work about identity and the way people are able to enact their identities within their work. It's a fascinating research topic. Leading development work. Very often people who are new to our work will say to me, what is development work exactly? And it's not easy to explain. How do you lead a process over time that leads to change and to improvement? It's a complex matter. How does it work? What's its impact? The school conditions. So Gulmira has written about this and studied this quite a bit. The kind of conditions you need within the schools to enable teacher leadership to flourish. What conditions are they exactly? And how can they be cultivated? And of course, the senior leaders in schools, the school principals and vice principals, have a key role to play in developing those conditions. And the question is, in Kazakhstan, do they feel able to? Do they feel free to do that kind of organizational development? On the right-hand side, my list, professional learning. What does it look like in relationship to teacher leadership? How is it that the leadership of development work actually leads to professional learning? And what kind of professional learning would that be? We need studies on that. Facilitation. You can't instruct people to become the kind of people who can exercise leadership. You can enable and you can facilitate. So one of the key things about running the workshops for teachers that we talk about is they've got to be facilitative to enable the teachers themselves to become empowered and to lead the kind of changes that they need to for themselves. So it's a very interesting research topic. Building the support. Now, how do we do this? I mean, how does Gulmira and Gulbaran, how are they doing that? What about the different organizations that would have to be involved in order to take this to scale? Obviously, we hope within this initiative that we are building something that is going to be nationwide, substantial, and sustainable. What an interesting research topic that is. What is it that's going to make it large scale and sustainable? And networking. Finally, how does networking really work? I've watched networking over many, many years, and it is fascinating to see how teachers talk to each other, how they give narratives about the work they're doing, how other teachers might ask questions, how other teachers might critique what they hear, what's the tone, what's the language, how do they do it, and how do you enable it? Because we've gone through many changes in our network, going from a position where teachers would simply give a very show-offy kind of story, a triumphalist narrative, as if there were no difficulties, and then finding ways to enable and encourage them to talk about the issues and the problems and to invite criticism. Not easy to do, and I dare say it's difficult for teachers in Kazakhstan to do, to tell a story about a struggle to lead a project and say, could you help me? Could you give me your ideas? It's not easy to do because people feel they have to be seen to be confident and the expert all the time. So it's a fascinating research topic too. So I hope I haven't gone on too long. I shall leave it there. If anybody wants to have any further dialogue with me about research in the future, I'm really up for that. And I know Gulmira is too. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. I think I will be adopting very much of a research language this time, and I'm very sorry about that. You know, given that there are many, PhD students attending this, event, I just wanted them to learn more about, all the details related to research. that we engaged in this project. So again, coming back to what matters to the local context is we understand that the Ministry of Education and local policymakers are very much interested in enhancing school autonomy. You know, for example, the per capita funding, which was introduced in almost all schools of Kazakhstan, meaning mainstream schools located in the urban places, they are all now very much interested in how do we enhance school autonomy. But then we also understand that that requires building capacity. And thank you very much, David, that you covered all the leadership side of the topic. And I would just briefly want to talk about the program itself. So the teacher-led development work methodology looks like this. So at the beginning of academic year, teachers clarify their professional values, then they identify their professional concerns, then they clarify the focus of their development project so that concern, becomes a project. And then they develop an action plan and design the development project. And then they discuss that action plan with other colleagues, and then they negotiate that action plan, and then they lead the development project, and then they engage, parents, students, and the community members, colleagues in their projects. And then they build, professional knowledge, and then they network with other colleagues throughout the process. So the program implementation in year one looked like this. So first we planned the initiative. It took place in March 2019 in Cambridge, UK. Then we identified schools and ran the induction conference. Then, meaning during the induction conference, we introduced the methodology to 32 facilitators. Those were the key people who introduced the program in schools. And then those people run group sessions, they run consultations with teachers who joined the program. And that we named as phase one. And then we had school network event in each region. That was before the pandemic. And then during the phase two, again, they run 2 more group sessions and 1 consultation. And then there was another, school network event in one of the schools in Nur Sultan. But after that, we had pandemic, and we had to, adapt quickly to that situation, meaning, all the program, group sessions, consultations, they started running, on an online platforms, using different kinds of, means such as Zoom and Google Teams and so on and so forth. And then we finalized the program with the International Teacher Leadership Conference. It looks very, straightforward if you look at these, words. But then if you look at the process itself, it's quite a big, event when you have to, engage with so many different people in so many different organizations. And, these are all the pictures that we took from our, participant observations. And this is how the process looked like, throughout this year. As you can see, it all started face-to-face, and then we started, continuing the program on an online, platforms. And then, so this how the roles and responsibilities were shared. So there was a TLK strategy group, and I was a member of that group, and which was responsible for the overall coordination of the program, and then organizing and helping facilitators to organize network events and run group sessions. And we were also involved in the program assessment at the end. And then facilitators, they were the key people, as I've already told. They introduced the program in schools, they organized network events in schools, they provided feedback to teachers, they shared ideas concerning the year 2 of the program, planning. And then school principals, they played mainly, their roles were mainly in creating conditions. So they, create the time and space for teachers to engage in this program. And they were also involved in planning the program in year 2. This is how the, the distribution of participants look like, meaning teachers. As you can see, the bulk of the participants are females, and they have, 2.8 years of average work experience. The majority come from the primary school, and then, secondary school, and then the subject areas are, as you can see in this diagram, languages, arts, and so on and so forth. And then teachers category. In this country, we divide teachers into 4 categories: teacher, teacher expert, teacher moderator, teacher researcher, teacher master. As you can see, the bulk of the teachers were teacher moderators. So the program participants, facilitators, the key people who introduced the program in schools, there were 2 from each school, one ideally vice principal for teaching methodology, and then the second one is an experienced teacher who attended different kinds of teacher training programs. So, and then the average work experience of those people were 20.4 years. As you can see, the bulk of the facilitators were vice principals, heads of departments, and some of them were experienced teachers. And their subject areas, as you can see here, were mainly languages, primary school, humanities, science, and then some of them were school counselors. As you can see here, this how the thematic distribution of teachers' leadership projects look like. As you can see, the bulk of the teachers looked at the issues related to primary school education, then languages, then, and some of them, I must say, they did not look at their subject specifically, but rather creating conditions in schools. For example, a biology teacher might be interested in how do I improve relationship between my, high school students, or for example, how do I create space for learning, creative learning in my school, those kind of concerns, and they were not necessarily related to their subject areas. This is how the data collection looked like. So we divided them into 3 phases, and engaged the different kinds of, data collection methods such as, one-to-one interviews, focus groups, participant observations, and then we ran survey when the program was almost there, for about 80% of the program is finished. We ran survey with the participants, and then we, analyzed all the artifacts that we collected throughout this year. Research, ethical considerations and quality, involving all the participants, particularly facilitators in the discussions to validate our findings, multiple data collection methods. We separated our roles in this project, one responsible for the data collection. I must say that was my colleague, Alexandra Nam, who collected data and analyzed qualitative data, and then Dr. Matthew Courtney, who will be speaking about the quantitative data. And then we explained the research purpose, before obtaining permission to record interviews or display their images, and then ensured confidentiality throughout the process. Now the floor is yours, Matthew. Matthew, are you with us?
Yep, I am. So can you unshare your screen and then I'll share mine? I think that's how it works.
Yep, just a second. Can you see the share screen thing? Yep.
Okay, we're good to go? Yep, okay.
Yep.
Should I go full screen, yeah?
Yeah, please.
Sweet, okay. All right, so I came to, my name is Matthew, and I came to Nazarbayev University in February this year, and my office was next to Gulmira's office. And Gulmira was busy doing projects with her friend Alexandra, and we got talking, and essentially they were doing this great project, and they had done some quantitative survey with teachers, and they wanted some help to see if I could assist them to try and make sense of the data. So I guess I understand obviously that this project is mainly an intervention project, but it also has a quantitative and qualitative research dimension. So I come in on the quantitative side because I've got lots of experience with data. So we looked over the data and the types of questions in the survey to teachers, and we grouped them into 2 types. So the first group of questions were retrospective experience on the program and in school, and current conception of teachers' leadership capacity and the impact of their individual projects. So under each of those headings, there were 2 sets each, 2 sets of scales we sort of identified. The first scale was the TLK experience, like how positive it was. And the other scale was, oh my God, 1 second, please. Guys, get out of here. I'm busy, don't do that, I've got a meeting. Okay. All right, sorry. there were two sets of questions under their retroactive experience on the course. And the first one was their experience as to how useful the program was. The other one was their experience of how collaborative their school culture was for that period. The other set of questions related to their current conception of themselves as leaders here, and also the impact of their project. So essentially, with this data, I can test a model. We can test to see how well a model fits with data. So I'm just testing 1, 2, 3, 4 direct effects in the data, looking at the effect of this variable on the outcome variables and this variable on the outcome variables. So this can help us understand the processes and patterns of experience of the teachers. So each question, there were several questions for each scale. So the first scale was perceived impact of the project, and there were 3 questions. Teacher leadership capacity, 3 questions again. Collaborative school culture, 5 questions. Positive TLK experience was 6 questions. Now, this was a like-it type design. So each respondent, each teacher responded by stating agree or disagree to that specific item. Now, the aggregate or composite averages were between 4 and 5. So the averages were between somewhat agree and agree. So sort of moderate responses. And there was some variation in the responses as well, obviously. The standard deviations were between 0.4 and 0.7. So there's some variation. So when we test a model, we test those direct effects. We first of all have to check whether each construct is valid and that each construct is distinct from the other construct. We can do this by applying some special statistical tools. And basically, when we see that each question is closely related to the construct, that's a good thing. And when we see the relationships between the constructs a little bit lower, that's also a good thing. So this here establishes that each of these 4 constructs are dimensionally distinct, that they represent concrete, valid factors, ideas, and that they can be modeled. So this is the first step that we take in the modeling approach. In the next step, I test direct effects in a structural model, and we can see that the teachers who experienced a positive or more positive TLK experience also exhibited better teacher leadership capacity in that final survey. So this means here that basically statistically, one standardized shift here is associated with 0.51 standard shifts here. It's just a way of talking statistically, but this is a big effect. The more positive the experience, the greater the teacher leadership capacity. Also down here, we're looking at the experience of collaborative school culture retrospectively. So the more collaborative school culture that the teachers experienced, the better the perceived impact of their project. So improved school culture appears to drive impactful projects, and improved experiences of the program and perceived utility of the program drives improved conception or teacher self-conception as leaders. And there's other relationships as well, but these are the main findings. There's no cross effects. So the experience itself had no direct relationship on the project. The TLK experience had a direct effect on the leadership capacity of the individuals, and the teacher's experience of collaborative school cultures in their school had effects on projects. So this helps to define what's happening, we could say. This is a purely quantitative way of looking at things. Not everybody's into it, but I am. Okay, so to sum, the teacher leadership in Kazakhstan model provides insights into the TLK experience, into how the TLK experience and collaborative school culture impacts on teacher leadership capacity and project initiatives. Basically, the more positive the TLK experience, the higher the teacher leadership capacity, and the more collaborative the school culture, the more effective the impact of the individual teacher-led projects. So at this juncture, we can shift to the qualitative findings, which help supplement, or both of these research approaches sort of work together. But I guess if anyone has any questions, then please, you can ask them. I'll do my best to answer them. Anyway, up to you, Gulmira.
Thank you, Matthew. I shall, if you could stop the screen sharing, I could
Oh, yeah.
share my screen again.
Okay.
Thank you once again. And on behalf of Alexandra, I guess is here, but still, I will continue. If you, Alexandra, don't mind, carry on with the explanation of the qualitative data analysis. And the research question 2 that we had is, how does the feedback from principals, facilitators, and teachers inform general understanding of the TLK program experience and the processes? So we ran thematic and open coding to construct data around the key themes, and we identified 4 key themes, such as experience of the program, organizational context, teacher leadership, impact of the teacher leadership development programs. As you can see here, you know, when you deal with the implementation kind of work, you deal with the black boxes. You know, we will not be explaining this black box here, but we shall try to explain how the shift took place. So at the initial stages of the program, the majority of the participants identified leadership as something related to positions and roles. Whereas at the end of the program, we saw people saying, you know, leadership is a practice, it's more about practice. And you can see from the quotes that teachers provided at the beginning and the end of the project, such as, for example, the leader is someone on a white horse, you know, or the end phase of the program, when they started developing, you know, perceptions such as, you know, it is not easy to lead change, but, you know, if you draw on your professional moral credibility, you know, you can introduce change in your school. And that was a very interesting finding, I think. So I would like to talk about those 4 key themes and divide them into challenges and opportunities. I will talk about the challenges first. So what we observed in schools is that there is no clear understanding or experience with the constructivist approach to learning. You know, the bulk of the teachers and, you know, facilitators expect clear instructions, you know, in the process of learning, and it requires a lot of scaffolding to enable that kind of shift, you know, when people expect, you know, telling kind of culture, and then they need to take ownership of the practice and lead the project, you know, and lead the initiative. And that is not easy. That is not easy, and that requires a huge scaffolding. Lack of experience with leading the problem-based projects, that was another problem. Also reflective versus staged practices, you know, especially, you know, when you ask people to reflect on practice or write reflective kind of, you know, writing pieces, they usually refer to some authorities, and then they find it very difficult to, you know, explore their own experiences, and that was very interesting. And also structurally, there is no systematic school-based professional learning opportunities, and that's not something, you know, that's not viewed as something that should be taking place in schools, but rather something that takes place outside the school as something, you know, of a training kind of approach, when they have to be told what they need to do first, second, and third. But however, there are some, you know, opportunities we see, because if you continue introducing systematic approaches, you know, to building teacher leadership capacities, then, you know, the shift can take place, but it takes time and scaffolding, as I've already mentioned. And then alternative organizational culture, as the majority of the teachers noted, you know, they were able to take ownership of the practice, at least some of them at the end of the academic year, and they described it as being able to build their own algorithm and then being able to reveal themselves. And that was also very interesting findings. So as you can see from this quote, you say, you know, I think there is a very, we thought that there is a very clear relationship between the structures and the perception of learning. As you can see here, teachers refer to the bureaucracy, not being able to express their thoughts openly, those kind of, quotes we felt. And also we understand that leading, a constructivist approach to learning itself is all about, exploring and being open to fail, and people find it difficult, they say, they have an A student syndrome, and maybe the organizational cultures and structures are also very much in place when they talk about the failure. Also, the efficacy of the program in terms of that particular, theme, we observe challenges such as, leadership is perceived as a role-based practice. Facilitators felt that they needed more hands-on support, as well as the school principals. And school principals' role in the program still was a bit limited, we found in our study. And then, however, we saw opportunities such as a gradual shift of perceptions about leadership, being able to talk about the existing problems openly, collaborating with colleagues, taking strategic actions. Those were highlighted by the participants of the program. So as you can see from this quote, the majority note that they enjoyed the program, particularly the fact that, people asked, someone asked what matters to them as educators, rather than imposed, ideas, from the top. And then in terms of building leadership capacity in schools, we observed authoritative organizational structures, excessive workload, lack of time. The teachers' inertia was also highlighted as a problem, as an obstacle. School administrators' perceptions about their roles in school. CPD culture is not there yet. Therefore, school administrators do not see themselves as the people who are responsible for teachers' professional learning or, leading learning in school. And also, we observed that school administration in this country is paid lower than teachers at the moment, and low remuneration and excessive paperwork is a huge, obstacle in building capacity at the, school leadership level, school leadership teams level. And then, this year in year 2, we are observing that there are dropouts, facilitators, dropping out as, some of them are staying, and there are new people joining the program, but there is such a problem. Some of the school principals leaving their positions because, again, all of those issues, highlighted above, low remuneration and, the paperwork. And then we also observed opportunities such as, collaboration and networking has a huge impact on enhancing teachers' confidence and commitment to their initiatives. Empathy is very important, especially between school administration, representatives and teachers. And redefining, there is an opportunity for redefining school leadership teams' roles in schools, enabling them to, shift from, transfer their thinking from the instruction-oriented mindset towards, facilitation, and then more of a facilitative approaches, and then enabling them to, think about themselves from a source of authority to, as a lead learner in the organization. And then, as you can see here from the quotes, teachers note, facilitators note that any school is a framework, and there are rules, there are roles, requirements. And then they highlighted that this particular, approach, the program gave them some freedom to think about their own practice and build the algorithm for themselves. And in terms of the impact of the participants' development projects, we see that there is still a need to identify what does leading and innovating means. However, we also see opportunities such as, impact at the classroom level, school community level, and community level, and school level. And then we also observed some tangible, impacts such as, developing handbooks, teachers being able throughout their projects, developing some strategies and handbooks for other colleagues to use in their schools, and, extensively sharing that knowledge with each other. Teachers reflecting on their own and school practices, and being able to create a space for a horizontal dialogue between teachers and school administration. Yeah, so as you can see here, it's one of the projects that had the nationwide impact. A physics teacher in Nur-Sultan city, he created, he was looking at how to enhance his colleagues and students' ICT skills. And that was at the beginning of the academic year. But as soon as the pandemic started, he understood that he needs something more than just a school-wide kind of initiative. So he created his own website through which he is now supporting, physics teachers throughout Kazakhstan. you know, particularly he's running workshops and sharing all the tools and strategies that he's been able to develop throughout his, you know, through his own project. At the moment, the aim of the program for year 2 is, you know, providing more scaffolding to facilitators and school principals, running separate sessions for them to understand the pedagogy of facilitation and its practices, and supporting online professional learning and networking through website development and social networking, enhancing school-to-school partnership, building national and international TL networks, and publishing a book about teachers' leadership stories, and so on and so forth. In terms of program evaluation, we are thinking that there are, you know, several options for us. One is exploring obstacles and opportunities for school-based professional learning, online professional learning and networking, as well as, you know, how do we redefine school leadership team roles in schools. And the final thoughts about the, you know, the systems, you know, it feels like we need to build systems before, you know, fighting for autonomy. First of all, you know, how do we change school perceptions about, you know, professional learning? You know, at the moment, as we already reported, learning is viewed something that, you know, as something that takes place outside the school, you know, and whereas what we are thinking about is an ongoing learning and, you know, CPD kind of, you know, approach. And then teachers' workload, the Stavka system has been criticized in so many empirical studies, and we understand that teachers are overburdened and they have too much, you know, teaching hours, as it, you know, clearly influences on their salary. And then school administrators' roles and their salary, which is very low at the moment, and they, at the moment, school administrators do not identify themselves as the lead learners or the ones who are responsible for leading learning in the school. And then there is also a need to build an independent mechanism of support for teacher leadership in schools, when teachers and schools can take ownership of the program in future, which is about the sustainability of the program. Engaging local authorities, particularly their quality measurement tools are not there yet, because when teachers and school principals engage with the program, you know, throughout one academic year, but at the end of the academic year, they encounter local administrators coming, you know, and saying, where is your UNT results, or where is your, you know, for example, Olympiads, and then so on and so forth. It's very difficult to talk about any kind of learning or leadership development in schools, as, you know, schools, you know, are very much dependent on the local authorities and their quality measurement tools. Leadership development at the preschool level seems to be a very good idea for the sustainability of to ensure the sustainability of the program, particularly at the pedagogical university level. I think they should introduce masters or, you know, bachelor's degree level programs on teacher leadership development, as well as external support. And this is something that doesn't relate to this particular study, but it's just questions that I want to leave with you. How can we as academicians can provide support to school improvement in this country? And, you know, can the university school partnership flourish in Kazakhstan? And if so, what kind of actions we should take to create such partnerships? And, you know, can the partnerships with local pedagogical institutes and NGOs be a starting point? So that's it for us. If you have any further questions, you are most welcome to email us, you know, me, Matthew, Alexander, and we are always happy to answer your questions. That's it, Laura. Floor is yours, please.
Gulmira, thank you for facilitating all this process, and it's very impressive. I would also like to thank the whole team. Saule, Gulbadan, Matthew, David, thank you so much. And I think we are now opening the questions and answer session, and we already only have 14 minutes for that. I think it's enough. Yeah, so dear participants, you're welcome, and please feel free to ask any questions. And Gulmira, as to the final question, as to the final thoughts, I think they should be definitely taken further to any other platforms, maybe for discussing with pedagogical institutes, with teachers, with schools. It's very interesting, I think, to discuss. So you can ask your questions in the chat as well. I can be reading them out loud, or you can turn on your microphone and ask your questions directly. Yeah, it's huge work. It's very impressive that you are doing this project. And I wish you every success with further implementation through year 2.
Thank you very much, Laura. I think we have a question here.
Is it in the chat? No,
Yeah.
right? Let me scroll it down.
Zach, would you like to ask it yourself, or would you like us to read it?
Hello, dear presenters. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's incredible presentation. Thank you very much. I was really impressed. Apart from that, it's really interesting. I guess it's incredibly useful and important, especially given the current situation in Kazakhstan in educational reform. So my question is short and general. So just your ideas regarding the pandemic. How do you think the pandemic, the existing switch to the online platform in teaching, how can it, what kind of impact can it have on the understanding of teacher leadership in schools, and whether the non-positional teacher leadership understanding can be benefit from it or not? Just your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think
I'll mute that. Okay.
I think in a way, pandemic is opening up us an opportunity, I think, to engage more with teachers and different networks and communities in different parts of the world, you know, and I think that's the positive side of it. At the moment, we are developing an online platform, you know, where we can, you know, engage with all the participants, because previously we were working only with the facilitators. Now we can observe through that platform what are all the participants are doing, and, you know, and analyze the materials that they are producing throughout their projects in that way. And I think given the time of pandemic, I think recently Saule Manjolna presented a very interesting research with an institute which is called Paper Lab, and they talked about the importance of school autonomy during the pandemic. And I think this project very much meets that kind of requirement, you know, when teachers are on their own in their, you know, apartments, houses, and then they have to deal with it on their own. I think in that sense, creating that kind of network, you know, online network, you call it, and bringing them all together and enabling them to think about their practice is one of the very most urgent matters that we should address, I believe. So I think, yeah, I think a pandemic in a way opened up a lot of opportunities for us.
Thank you, Gulmira. Here in the chat, we have mostly thank yous. So participants are saying thank you, expressing their gratitude. They like the presentation very much. So any other questions?
Laura, can I comment?
Sure, yes, Albina, yes. Go ahead, Albina.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting to listen about your experience. I'm not sure if it's a question. I think I'm just gonna want to share our little story from North Kazakhstan. Last year, we established an NGO in North Kazakhstan. It's like an association for English teachers in North Kazakhstan. And I really liked your last questions you posted there, Gulmira, on your slide, because actually we were thinking how we can make that connection between school teachers and universities, because we can see that there is like kind of like gap between what is going on now at schools and what teachers are being taught, like pre-service teachers are being taught at the universities. And maybe now my question is like, what kind of steps have been done between like to bring these all reforms, what we are doing through Nazarbayev intellectual schools, you know, trilingual policy, these level courses, through faculty of education, and what kind of like maybe projects or reforms was done at the universities to bring all these initiatives and innovations to mainstream schools at the universities. Maybe my question is a little bit mixed up. Should I repeat maybe? I'm not sure. I'm a bit nervous.
Any question is worth asking, Albina. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a very good question. And I think that's a question to all of us, I think, rather than to one person. And I think there is a huge potential for us as researchers, educators to engage with teachers. Particularly in this project, I am observing that there is so much potential, for our colleagues to collaborate with teachers and explore, and engage, and then create maybe some, strategies and tools and to help schools improve, I think, in this country. But then again, that requires, a lot of time investment, and I think the initiation probably should come from the schools, side rather than the academician side, because in this relationship, we all should be equal rather than one dominating the others. So I think it's a very good point, and there's a huge, room for that in this country. Thank you.
Can I make a point on that too?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a common problem, like the massive gap between research and practice, like especially for quantitative people, right? Like people like myself, like how do my findings actually help a teacher? How can my research actually help teachers and in the classroom, or how can they inform policy and so forth? But we've done a lot of work recently on sort of big data analysis and looking at what type of things drive improved teacher self-efficacy in Kazakhstan. So what we found is that the teachers that learn more about classroom management skills and managing behavior in classrooms, and also using assessment in a formative way, they're able to manage their classes so much better, and they're so much more self-efficient in the classroom. So that's some of it. And also in terms of motivation as well, we actually found that the teachers that are altruistic, they want to give, they're the ones that also are more efficient in the classroom as well. So there's, in terms of selection criteria, maybe the government can look at identifying teacher trainees that are actually motivated altruistically, that want to give socially. And also in terms of training, basically the government should be looking at boosting formative use of assessment and classroom management strategies, which is beyond just content, like understanding content to teach physics or maths or whatever. So they really need to focus more on pedagogy and other things as well. So that's what our research has been finding. So I guess that's my connection as well, how I want to connect. But I'm interested in the connection as well. But one more thing on that pandemic, in terms of non-positional teacher leadership, there's enormous opportunities for the lower positional people who are better at IT, the lower positional teachers to take a lead and show the older generation, help them out, right? And so that might be a segue into more opportunities for non-positional leadership. Of course, it's a hindrance, but it also provides opportunity as well. Yeah.
Very interesting point, Matthew. Thank you so much. So let me read out loud just the last questions for today's seminar. Our colleague Marilyn is asking the following question: can you reach out to television program teachers? I've watched a few of the programs and they don't seem very engaging. If the pandemic continues and education for millions of children happens through the television, it would be helpful to have more engagement between the TV teachers and their audience. So I think Marilyn means the Balapan TV, right? The programs, the lessons actually on TV, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Marilyn is connecting, yeah. So any suggestions or any ideas about that? I think Marilyn has a problem with
Thank you very much for your question, Marilyn. I think that's a very good point, and we were thinking about promoting this project more on TV and other social networks. And again, but that's a matter of ethical consideration. But I think schools are very much willing to share their experience, and I think that could be one of our aims for this year. But in terms of engaging, I think the dialogic approach requires, again, as I've already mentioned about this constructivist approach to learning, requires scaffolding, you know, before teachers go on TV and start, you know, engaging other colleagues, so try to engage other colleagues in this process of learning or engage students. I guess in this country, at least, we need to, you know, introduce a lot of scaffolding and enable them to understand and be able to develop strategies to, you know, be more, you know, dialogic and engaging, you know, practitioners, I think. But maybe I'm wrong, and I'm already observing that there are very interesting cases, such as, for example, the physics teacher from Sultan City, who are very proactive and who are very much open to share and learn. And I think we can explore that opportunity in future. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last question, Asel Jandosova, I think the question is directed to Saule Amanjolovna. So Asel is asking, could we participate in research and the questionnaire teacher voice in Saule Kalikova's project as a teacher, and how? Thank you. Microphone, your microphone. Saule Amanjolovna, you should turn on your microphone.
Так, слышите? Спасибо за вопрос, я уже видела его. Да, действительно, мы этот проект задумываем, в смысле это исследование, возможно, в конце года или в начале следующего года мы приступим к его реализации, но я вам сразу скажу, что у нас есть два формата как бы приглашения к сотрудничеству. Это или большие открытые конкурсы, как это было в прошлом году, когда мы объявляли большой конкурс на проекты, инновационные проекты для поддержки инновационных проектов. Или же это бывают такие приглашения среди таких, ну, как бы ключевых организаций, где потенциально могут быть интересы. Поэтому, конечно, мы держим в голове, что высшая школа образования, вот молодые исследователи, что вы наша адресная группа в этом смысле. И как только мы решим, потому что это бюджет следующего года, как только мы приступим уже к реализации, разработаем term of reference для этого проекта, техническое задание, что мы хотим, какая это будет группа, я обязательно буду это иметь в виду. Спасибо за интерес. Спасибо за интерес.
Thank you so much. So Galina is agreeing with Dr. Courtney. So she's saying, I very much agree. And teaching extends beyond the subject knowledge. The more teachers understand how to teach effectively, the more confident they will become in initiative different collaborative projects. Okay, thank you so much. I think we are done for today. If you have further questions, you can always email, right, Gulmira and the other researchers, team members. Thank you so much. So let me announce the next research seminar, which is going to be in next month. Our next speaker is very prominent scholar in higher education and the internationalization, Dr. Gita Steiner-Hamsi. So please join us next month. Follow us, please stay tuned. You can follow our announcements on my Facebook page and on the Facebook page of NUGC on Instagram. And please join us next time. Thank you so much to all the speakers, participants, to all your comments, questions. Please have a nice evening.
Thank you very much. Спасибо вам большое, Сауля Манжуловна.
Да, вам спасибо. Гита Штайнер-Кларс, если будете, если можно, я бы пришла с удовольствием ее послушать.
Давайте, следующий месяц обязательно, да, 15 ноября вроде.
Спасибо, спасибо.
So you know it's going to be a very huge event as well, as interesting as this one. So please join us.
Спасибо.
Okay, so bye. I'm stopping the recording.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.